It takes 3 seconds to make. You will spend 3 days thinking about it. It is Tuesday, between second and third period. The hallway outside the science wing is exactly as loud and crowded as it always is. Lockers banging, someone's playlist leaking from earphones, the specific smell of a school hallway that is somehow the same in every school in the world, regardless of where you are. You are thinking about the chemistry test next period. You studied last night, but not enough, and you know you studied not enough, and you are running the periodic table in your head while walking and not paying attention to anything except the periodic table. Then you hear the thud. You look up, 20 feet ahead. Tyler Marsh has Dominic, your best friend since sixth grade, your person, backed against a locker, one hand on Dominic's collar, the other drawn back. Dominic is looking at you over Tyler's shoulder, not calling for help, not saying anything, just looking at you with an expression that says, I see you there. I know you see this. I am not going to ask you to do anything. The crowd is forming, the circle that always forms, the specific geometry of spectators arranging themselves around something they came to watch rather than stop. Tyler's hand moves, and you make a decision in 3 seconds that you were not planning to make and did not know you were capable of making. You move, you push through the crowd, not running. If you run, something happens in your brain that you cannot come back from, and you need to stay in control of whatever this is. Walking fast, deliberately. The crowd parts slightly because people part for someone who looks like they know where they are going, even when they absolutely do not know where they are going. You reach Tyler. You put your hand on his shoulder. You say, and your voice is steadier than you expected it to be, which surprises you even as it is happening. Hey, stop. Tyler turns around. He is a full head taller than you. He plays varsity football. He has the specific physical presence of someone who has never had to think about taking up space because he has always simply taken it. He looks at you with an expression that moves through surprise and lands on something colder. He says, walk away. You say, let him go first. The hallway is very quiet now, the kind of quiet that only happens in schools when something is happening that everyone knows is significant and nobody wants to miss. Tyler looks at you. You look at Tyler. And in that moment, in that specific suspended moment where two people are deciding what happens next, you are more frightened than you have been since you were 9 years old and fell off a roof and were briefly completely certain that falling was all there was going to be. But you do not move. You keep your hand on his shoulder, lightly, not aggressively, not a challenge, just present. A hand that says, I am here. This requires you to go through me, and going through me is a different situation than what you came here for. Tyler looks at Dominic, then back at you. Then he does something you did not predict. He steps back, not dramatically, not with words. He just steps back, releases Dominic's collar, looks at you for one more second. Then he turns and he walks in the other direction, and the crowd which had gathered to watch something breaks apart because there is nothing left to watch. Dominic is against the locker, breathing fast. You are next to him, breathing faster. He says, what was that? You say, I have absolutely no idea. Then a voice from the end of the hallway, all three of you, my office. Now, Miss Okafor, standing 30 feet away with a coffee cup in one hand and an expression that suggests she saw the whole thing and has already decided how she feels about it. Dominic talks on the way to the office. He talks the way he always talks when he is processing something, quickly, quietly, the words finding the shape of the thought as he goes rather than arriving fully formed. He says it started in the cafeteria yesterday. I actually bumped into him accident, completely not on purpose. And his tray went sideways and he said, I did it deliberately. And I said, I absolutely did not. And he escalated. He followed me out of the cafeteria. I thought it was done. Apparently it was not done. You say, why didn't you tell me? Dominic looks at you. He says, because I didn't want it to become a thing. Because I thought it was done. And I want you to hear this, because what you just did back there was either the bravest thing I have ever seen or the most spectacularly unwise thing I have ever seen, and I genuinely cannot decide which. You say both. Definitely both. Dominic says he could have hit you. You say, I know. He says he is significantly larger than you. You say, also know that. He says, I need you to understand that I am simultaneously grateful and absolutely furious with you for taking that risk. You say, noted. He says, also, thank you. Obviously, enormously. Thank you. You say, you're welcome. Also, you owe me for the chemistry test. I am now definitely failing because I have spent the last 3 minutes thinking about this instead of the periodic table. Dominic almost smiles. Almost. The office door is in front of you. He straightens up. You straighten up. You walk in. Miss Okafor's office has 3 chairs arranged in a semicircle in front of her desk. You sit in one. Dominic sits in another. Tyler sits in the third with the specific posture of someone who has been in this office before and has a strategy for it. Slightly slumped, arms crossed, expression suggesting that whatever happens here is less important than he is prepared to let it be. Miss Okafor finishes what she is doing on her computer. She turns around. She looks at all 3 of you for a moment without speaking. Then she says, Tyler, what is going on with you? Not what happened, not who started it. What is going on with you? Tyler uncrosses his arms, just slightly. He says nothing. Miss Okafor says, Tyler, I have known you since 9th grade. I have watched you play football, and I have watched you in the hallways, and I know the difference between your nothing and an actual nothing. So I'm going to ask you again, and I need a real answer. What is going on? The office is very quiet. You look at Tyler. You have never actually looked at Tyler before. Not really, not past the size and the reputation and the specific gravity that certain people carry in school hallways. You look at him now. He is tired. That is the thing you notice. Not angry, or not only angry, tired. The specific tired of someone who has been carrying something for a while and has not put it down and does not know how to put it down and has been expressing the weight of it in the only way that has felt available. Tyler says, my parents are getting divorced. My dad moved out 3 weeks ago. I have been sleeping on the couch because my little brother took my room, and I didn't argue about it because he is 9 and he needed the room more than I did. I have not slept properly in 3 weeks. And yesterday, Dominic bumped into me and spilled my lunch. And I know it was an accident. I knew it was an accident when it happened. He stops. He looks at his hands. He says, I'm sorry, to Dominic specifically. I knew it was an accident, and I went after you anyway, and that was wrong. The office is so quiet you can hear the clock on Miss Okafor's wall. Dominic says, I accept that, not I forgive you. I accept that, which is its own kind of grace, the acknowledgement of an apology without the performance of instant forgiveness, which would be dishonest. And Dominic does not do dishonest things. Miss Okafor looks at Tyler for a long moment. Then she says, you need to talk to someone about what is happening at home. Not me specifically. Someone who can actually help. The school counselor. Your mom. Someone. Can you do that? Tyler says, yeah. Okay, I am going to call your parents regardless, because what happened in that hallway requires it. But Tyler, I need you to hear me. What is happening at home is not your fault, and how you feel about it is completely valid. How you expressed it today was not. Those are 2 different things, and you need to understand the difference. Tyler nods, just once. But completely, Tyler waits outside. Miss Okafor looks at you and Dominic. She says to you what you did in that hallway. You wait. She says it was brave. I want to be clear about that. What you did required courage, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. You saw your friend in trouble, and you put yourself between him and the danger. And that says something genuinely good about who you are. You say, but. She says, but. You are 17. Tyler is significantly larger than you and was in an emotional state that made him unpredictable. If he had not stepped back, if he had swung at you instead of walking away, this conversation would be happening in a hospital waiting room rather than my office. You got a good outcome from a decision that could very easily have had a bad one. You say, I know. I thought about that after. She says, I need you to think about it before next time. Because there will be a next time. Not necessarily you specifically, but situations where someone you care about is in trouble. And the question is what you do. And the answer is not always step between them. Sometimes the answer is get an adult immediately. Sometimes the answer is call out loudly so the crowd becomes witnesses rather than spectators. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the answer is exactly what you did. She looks at you for a moment. Then she says, "How did you know he would back down? You think about this honestly." Then you say, "I didn't. I just knew I couldn't watch him hit Dominic and do nothing." Miss Okafor is quiet for a moment. Then she says, "That is the honest answer, and I respect it. Dominic, you should have told someone what was happening yesterday instead of hoping it resolved itself." Hoping problems resolve themselves is a strategy that occasionally works and more often does not. Dominic says, "Understood." She says, "Both of you, no suspension. What happened did not escalate to the point that requires it, and I am not going to punish courage even when it was unwise. But I need both of you to be smarter going forward. Understood?" You say, "Understood." She says, "Good. Go to class. You are both officially late. I will email your teachers." Dominic walks with you to the chemistry classroom. Outside the door, he stops. He looks at you. He says, "I want to say something, and I need you to let me say it without deflecting." You say, "Okay." He says, "You have been my best friend since sixth grade. We have been through a lot of things. I know you are not someone who looks for trouble, and I know that what you did back there was not something you planned or rehearsed or thought was going to be a good idea in advance. You just did it because it was me." He stops. Then he says, "That matters. Not because it means you were right to do it. Miss Okafor is correct that it could have gone badly, but because it tells me something about you that I already knew, but that it is good to have confirmed. You show up. When it matters, you say you would have done the same." He says, "I would have tried to. Whether I would have actually gotten there, honestly, I don't know. But I would have tried." The chemistry door opens. Someone else going in. The test is starting. Dominic says, "Go fail your chemistry test." You say, "Thank you for that." You go in, you sit down. The test paper is in front of you. You look at it, and approximately 40% of the periodic table is still in your head, and the other 60% has been displaced by Tyler's face when he said, "I'm sorry," and Dominic's expression over Tyler's shoulder in the hallway, and your own hand on Tyler's shoulder, lighter than a challenge, heavier than nothing. You do not fail the chemistry test. You get a C minus, which is not good, but is also not failing. And given the morning you have had, you consider it a personal triumph. Here's what I want you to take from this. School fights, real ones, not the ones in movies, are almost never about what they appear to be about on the surface. Tyler was not angry at Dominic. Tyler was angry at a couch he'd been sleeping on for 3 weeks, and a father who moved out, and a little brother whose needs he put ahead of his own, because he is underneath the size and the reputation and the specific gravity of someone who has learned to take up space, a 17-year-old kid who does not know how to put down something heavy. That does not excuse what he did in that hallway. Dominic's collar is real. The crowd forming to watch is real. The decision you had to make in 3 seconds is real. Consequences are real regardless of causes, but causes matter. They always matter. Not to excuse, to understand. And understanding is the only thing that actually prevents the next hallway, the next locker, the next 3 seconds where someone has to decide. You made a decision in 3 seconds. It was brave and it was unwise and it worked, and it could very easily not have worked. Miss Okafor was right about all of that simultaneously. What matters, what you will carry from today, is not whether the decision was right or wrong in some clean absolute sense. What matters is who you discovered you were when you made it. You are someone who shows up when it matters for the people you love. That is not nothing. In a hallway full of spectators who arrange themselves in a circle to watch, it is the opposite of nothing. The periodic table will wait. Chemistry will wait. Most things will wait. The moment where your friend needs you does not wait. You knew that. In 3 seconds, without thinking, without planning, you knew that. Good. Hold on to that. It will matter again. Drop in the comments. Have you ever had to make a decision in 3 seconds that you spent days thinking about? Tell me what it was. Because this comment section is going to be full of people who showed up when it mattered. And that is a good thing to be surrounded by. Subscribe to Borrowed Lives. Every week, a different life. Every week, something true about who we are when it counts. See you in the next Borrowed Life.